guys are all okay today, and I'm sure that you guys are excited to have this topic over here, which I think is quite interesting for all the startups to understand and also to get to know how does the corporate could actually be in support or maybe co-create certain things together to drive growth in the startup ecosystem itself. So let me just quickly do a little bit of introduction. So as I want to touch base on the highlight from Super, which is Malaysian startup ecosystem roadmap, which have already highlighted like 5 main challenges, right? So as we all know, startups faced with multiple challenges when it comes to growth itself. And these include lack of private sector funding, lack of clear path from ideation to commercialization, shortage of local foreign talent, and also lack of validation and support, and also access to cross-border market penetration. So from those 5, when we look at it, there's a perspective where corporates comes in, right? That could actually help nurture in terms of the growth of the startup ecosystem. So today, we aim to explore the opportunities and challenges, to get to know the challenges of collaboration between startups and also corporations, and learn how they can work together to create innovative solutions and drive growth in the startup ecosystem. So we are honored today to have 3 esteemed panelists who are leaders in their respective organizations and have an extensive experience in corporate venturing. So I would like to, on my left, I would like to introduce Mr. Loh K. Jiat, Chief Marketing Officer of Maxis. Second, in the middle, would be Encik Fahmi Azril Abu Said, which is the head of Accelerator program at Petronas Ventures. And last but not least, which is Dr. Ram, which is the Director of Strategy and Innovation at AirAsia Academy. So, so basically throughout this course, I think people actually want to know more about how corporates can work together. In this discussion, the panelists will share a little bit of insight and experiences on how corporates and startups could actually collaborate and create a win-win partnership, right? So we hope this session will be an inspiring one and could inform all of us as we can explore exciting potential together as to build the ecosystem, right? To start off, I would like to each of the esteemed panelists to briefly introduce themselves and also their background in corporate venture. Would you like to introduce yourself, Mr. Loh?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Loh. I'm responsible for the marketing and consumer business for Maxis. I hope you're probably aware that as Maxis as a business, we're in the business of connecting people. We are serving more than 9 million individual customers, and as well as more than 90,000 of businesses.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, hi everyone. Hopefully you guys have already had lunch and not feel very sleepy at the moment. So my name is Fahmi. I'm from Petronas Ventures, specifically the head of the Technology Accelerator program for Petronas Ventures. So I've been with Petronas for about 20 years now. I've been doing quite a lot of things within Petronas, doing business development, trading, risk management, procurement, vendor development, you name it. So hopefully I will give you good insights on how actually Petronas works and specifically how we actually engage with startups. Thank you.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, I look exactly like my picture there, so it wasn't false advertising. My name is Ram. I am, as Khairi mentioned, Director of Strategy and Innovation at AirAsia Academy. And what that means is my job is finding ways to solve problems, whether within or outside of academy, and also taking all of the scolding when we don't hit our revenue targets. So I got a little bit of surprise there. You guys might think that AirAsia Academy being part of Capital A means that we're very comfortable, right? We're part of the big organization. But no, we are actually a startup just like you guys. So, I'll explain more later, but I think I share a perspective that's unusual because I can see it from your side too.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for the introductions. Now, so without further ado, I think let's just dive in terms of the questions that we're gonna lay over here, right? So, first question, I think all of the panelists would actually answer for this particular one. The startup ecosystem is a dynamic and fast-paced one, which I think all of the startup over here knows that, you know, pivoting certain roles and certain directions it's a must, and it's always ever-changing, right? So, would you care to share with us your thoughts and the importance for corporates to invest or even to support the startups? And also, would you like to care to share some examples of what your organization specifically has done so far in terms of the journey together to be at the forefront of technology? Would you like to care to explain a little bit?
Okay, I can take this question first, and the second question will start from there. Okay, I see a lot of young faces in the room. I'm also sure some of you has, before you embark into your startup journey, you probably have some point in time, you work in the big corporates. You know, how I look at it is, you know, a typical corporate like where I serve, right, Maxis, we tend to try to solve sometimes too many problems. And the worst is, right, we always try to solve all these problems with the same solutions. And, you know, and if I look at some of the startups, right, especially the more successful one, I kind of like notice that a lot of these successful startups, they're not solving too many problems. They actually solve one or two relevant problems, right? But the success formula there is, you know, is solving this one or two problem with trying many different innovation and solution. And, you know, this, if you look at this, right, these are the two differences that, I guess, why we need each other. I think for a corporate, we have tons of problems to be solved, okay? And what we really need is a startup mindset where you can break down some of these problems into a more simple problems and try to think out of the box and use different innovation and new technology to solve this, right? So for Maxis, I think we have been pretty active in this space for a couple of years now. We did invest in some startups. It's also a learning for me, how to help them, right? Not just about funding. Actually, the more challenging is, most of the time, it's not really funding. It's really a lot about understanding the problems, articulating these problems, and find the right solution. Other than investing in startup, right? In fact, we have a dedicated teams who are actively, you know, continuously to connect ourselves with the ecosystem and participate in events like this, right? And the objective there is also a lot more about, you know, how do we act as a bridge, right? Between us and the startup. Yep, and I guess these are the areas that we are continuing to work on.
Right, okay. How about Mr. Fahmi?
For us, Petronas, being an energy company, the pace of energy transition continued to accelerate for the past few years. For us, the challenge is very real. The threat is very real. So for us, there is a need for Petronas as a corporation to adapt and react very fast towards this macroeconomics. So for us, this is right. Actually, despite of the challenges, for us, this is the right time for us to reshape our portfolio. Look beyond our traditional or core business, which is oil and gas, and also step out. Okay, look into the territory that we have never ventured before. So when we look around, there's only one way for us to do that: investing into innovation and technology. So how to do that? So Petronas has been used to work with mature vendors, mature technology companies before. So the likes of AWS, Google, those big names. But we realized that there's one ecosystem that we have never reached out to, where all the great minds, all the good technologies are actually there. which is a startup ecosystem. So by reaching out to this ecosystem, we will be able to access to new technologies, keep up with the trends, as well as looking at a new frontier, or maybe plant a seed for us to actually look beyond before something a big change happen to the industry. So, and on top of that, Petronas has been doing our own research and development program for as long as I can remember. So we identified that there's other ways for us to actually reach out to innovation and technology rather than our own doing our own research in technology. We can actually explore inexpensive testing of new technology, new solutions, or even new business model while engaging with startups. So when you talk about our journey in this particular space, we were quite new. Petronas Ventures is only established back towards the end of 2018. This is our 5th year now. So we have done direct investment in startups. We have invested into 22 startups, 7 in Asia Pacific, and 15 in the States. And on top of that, we also do indirect investment. We have invested into 7 funds, mainly in Asia Pacific, in China, in India, and also in Southeast Asia. Beyond that, I'm not so sure whether you know this or not, we also run our own accelerator program called Petronas Future Tech. We have run 2 cohorts, starting with pilot in 2019. So basically 40 startups have already graduated from the program. And the beautiful thing about that program, and as well as our investment, it has created a lot of good deployment traction within our own ecosystem. So up until today, we have initiated about more than 100 business engagement between startups and our business unit, ranging across our value business range. So hopefully we'll be able to expand that a bit more with more programs, with more reach out to startup ecosystem. Yep.
Great. Okay, how about Dr. Ram? Because just now you actually said you are also a startup, right? So how can you explain a little bit on how is it?
Okay, so these gentlemen here have told you from the perspective of the company with the money. I'm going to tell you from your side. Actually, I feel like I'm in a hipster bar. I've seen like 5 ponytails today, and I haven't looked in the mirror. The thing that you have to remember is that whoever invests in you, if it's a VC, they're going to be like a bunch of vampires. They want a profit, okay? They are not putting in money hoping that you will change the world. They want to see that money back plus the interest. It ain't coming for free. Second thing is, some pitch decks, no matter how good, you did everything right, but somehow it wasn't your day. It might not work out your way. It doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong. I crashed and burned lots of times. You guys want to be successful startups? I don't know whether I should tell you this, but first is, you have to be what I would call painfully practical in your approach. Because you don't have the resources that the big corporations have. And even if the big corporations invest in you, you're still not going to be a battleship. You're a little ship. That's what's special about you. If you see a reef, you can actually dodge the bullet. You know, you can change course. The big guys, they can't change course so easily. They have to worry about their brand and all. And when you're trying to get investment from them, you have to remember, you have to protect their brand. You have to be in line with their business direction and their vision. You can't say, oh, yo, what's up? Maxis, let's change entirely. Let's go from telecommunication to something entirely different. I'm going to give you maybe in 10, 20 years, but honestly, you give that sort of pitch, they'll be like, yalah, betul lah tu, blah, lah. It's same, like AirAsia. You guys, this whole room, I bet none of you knew about AirAsia Academy until today, other than our marketing team. The best marketing team in Malaysia. Okay, don't poach, don't poach. So you have to remember, VCs want profit. So if you pitch to them, you got to show them how they're going to get their money back. And corporations, even if it's not directly profit, they're not going to wait forever, okay? You might have a bit of extra time, but they're not going to give you like, okay, give me another 10 years.
Right. Thank you so much for that perspective over there. So I think moving on, echoing to your word just now, corporate direction. Right? So I would like to address to specific questions to each of the panelists over here. In terms of Maxis, right? How does Maxis innovation and also approach learning, right, about these new technologies? And what are some of the specific examples of technologies that Maxis has already explored recently?
Again, I think as a corporate, right, we are, to a certain extent, we are not really a VC per se. It's not so much just for the returns or investment, right? I think the reason why we are embarked into this space is a lot to do is, how do we solve some of the business challenges that we are facing today? And I think one way to, approach this innovation and also bring the learning is, right, you see, internally, as I mentioned just now, we are facing a lot of problems, a lot of challenges in our business, right? But what we are doing now is really try to break down that value chain, the complex value chain, into a more specific components, right? And hopefully that each of these components, and that's where we can connect with the startup world, right? And some of this component, while it's solving partial of our value chain, but some of these can be a business by itself. If you are able to do it right and do it well, I think a lot of the big businesses that more or less facing the same complexity in the value chain will find some of this innovation and technology are relevant, right? So I think, again, here, what we need to do internally is try to break down the complexity as clear as possible into smaller components, and then expose ourselves, right, this small component to the startup world, and trying to find the right solution. And from there, then, some of this we probably can scale into a business by itself, right, hopefully, right? If not, some of this can be, really help us to bring down our operating costs as well.
Right.
I'll give you one example, right? In terms of innovation that benefit the telco a lot in the last couple of years is like mobile app technology, right? I think in the past, to serve our customers, the only way is face-to-face, or we use a lot of contact center, right? But then the last 5 years, thanks to the mobile apps and a lot of the mobile apps technology, right? Where today, quite a lot of the transaction we can serve our customer 24/7. And without them need to walk to our store, right? And that really cut down a lot of our pain in terms of operation. And I'm sure it's also cutting down a lot of pain that the customer are facing. This is really one area that we will continue to work on and embark on. Mm-hmm. How do we use digitization to really digitize our business, right? And cut down the complexity, and also more important is cut down the layers, right? And I think that will serve us in terms of cost, but at the same time, right, it's also give us more time, to serve our customers things that really matters to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So taking from your point just now in terms of learning, right? So I would like to move on to Fahmi, which I think because we have the partnership and also you have your own set of directions in terms of learning, which is the Petronas Future Tech itself, right? So can you tell us, what are the key benefits, or even maybe you could actually explain a little bit about the program itself, and also the key benefits of the corporate venturing from Petronas, and how does Petronas Ventures balance the goals of driving innovation and generating value to the business itself?
The question sounds complicated, but I think the answer is quite simple. So basically, in Petronas, we are guided by a common goal. So whenever we do our day-to-day transaction and whatnot, so basically we are looking for fresh ideas, fresh solutions to support our current pain points, as well as looking for something to support our future growth. So by doing corporate venturing, this is another window for our people, our staff, to actually look beyond what they see every day. So when we first started our Future Tech program back in 2019, we actually brought the startups to meet with our people on the ground. We brought them to our plants, downstream plant in Kerteh. We brought them to our data center in KLCC. We brought them to our research center in Bangi. So actually we matched them. We engage, create the engagement between the business as well as the startups to explore different sets of methodology, different sets of philosophies. So when they exchange this idea, this is the feedback that we receive from our own people. They welcome all these new ideas, fresh ideas that they have never thought of before, because they see problems every day. They know they want to solve the problem. They have some ideas, but they just don't know how to actually develop or expand the ideas to create new solution from what they see every day. Hence, with this engagement with the startups and whatnot, it creates a lot of traction in terms of coming up with the new solutions, coming up with new ideas, looking for longer partnerships. So all in all, each and every point within our own business, we are slowly evolving this culture within our entity. So we're talking about supporting our growth goals, which is 30% of new revenue from 30% of the revenue of new from new non-traditional business, as well as supporting our sustainability goals, which is net zero carbon emission by 2050. This is new or fresh things that we have never encountered before. There's something when we had the discussion with the masses, with the startups out there, this brings a lot of conversations are being created, a lot of new ideas are being churned, and hopefully we will be able to actually create something that will have a long-lasting impact to our organization.
Thank you so much. So, okay, moving on to Dr. Ram, right? So, we've also had the partnership where we wanted to create in terms of the programs that upskill and reskilling accessible for all the startups over there, right? So how does AirAsia plan to engage with the broader tech startup ecosystem in Malaysia to drive the adoption of upskilling and reskilling again? Because it's very important, you know, when you are in that zone, you tend to forget that, hey, there's also accessibility for all the startups to go back to the fundamentals and relearn and reskill them back again, themselves again. So how does AirAsia take that?
Okay. As one of the things my dad who taught me, my dad was very successful. I'm still trying to live up to him. He always told me, and startups always think, ooh, I have a very good idea. My dad always told me, son, you're a pretty clever guy. But remember, even the guy at the mental asylum has lots of ideas. It's about making those ideas work. And it's really, really tough to make anything work if you don't know how it functions at a fundamental level. You don't need to be the world's greatest expert at it as a founder. But if you have no comprehension about the problem that you're trying to solve, then you have no hope of winning, no matter how much capital injection and no matter who you hire. And that's something you have to remember. Since the dawn of time, the guy who knows the most, not necessarily the smartest guy. And, yep, well, there you go. But in the end, you have to make something that people will pay for, okay? If you're talented and you do something, people will clap for you. But if you're really, really good, people will pay you for it. Likewise with your product. So to create that good product, whatever it is that you're trying to create, you need you and everyone in your organization, however small, however large, needs to have an in-depth comprehension. And you can't say that university degrees are a good measure. Huh? I got my PhD to prove to my father there is no big deal. I could do it to win a bet. I wouldn't tell you what the bet was about, but I won the bet and he paid up. But that's it. What I realized was I could do all of the stuff before I got my PhD. I can still do it. it's just that I had this willingness to keep on expanding my horizons. And that's it. So we are providing AirAsiaAcademy.com in partnership with MYStartup to all of you guys.
So there you go. So head yourself over there later just to get to know. I mean, you can actually get to know the AirAsia Academy and also the rest of the partners over there. So I want to ask next question. I think this is the last question for all of the panelists over here. It can be quite interesting, right? Because everybody knows when we talk to corporates and how the communication between the corporates and also the startups is totally different, right? So effective communication strategies between the corporate and the startup founders are essential to foster collaboration and growth, right? So encouraging corporates venturing into and also innovation in Malaysia is crucial for driving economic growth. So in your opinion, how can an effective communication bridge the gap between a large corporation and small startups and also help them to overcome the challenges? And next question would be, how does the support from corporates differ compared to the investment of the VCs? And it's a kind of like different scope over there. So how do you actually see that through the corporate lens?
Okay, I can start first. Like I said, to begin with, right? Well, sometimes we are solving the same problems, but it's come from a two different extreme, right? As I say, corporate, we have a lot of legacy, a lot of complexity. And then on the other hand, right, startup, you have probably a lot of new technology, less burden. You can be as innovative as you want. So I don't want to sugarcoat it, right? It's not easy to begin with, right? I think we just have to acknowledge it's the two different ends try to come together to solve our problems, right? So to effective communication is definitely a must, But it's also a lot about, as I mentioned just now, right? As a corporate, how do we, also trying to be as crystal clear as possible, right? No point throw a big problems and then, and put some carrot there and hopefully that magics will happen. I don't think that will work, right? Definitely, I think first thing is the big corporate need to be articulating what exactly that we want, right? Is it about solving today's problems or is it about identifying new opportunity? I'm not saying that there's not new problems, right? I think there are definitely new problems that arise from anything from weather all the way to AI now, right? But also, a lot of the successful startups, like I say, right, are solving not the new problems, a problem that is already exists. It's just that you need a different way to solve this, right? So again, I think from a corporate point of view, we need to be as clear as possible. And also, right, we need to put a lot of effort to create the bridge, right? Like I say, in Maxis, we have a dedicated team. Not just going out there to connect to the ecosystem, right? It's also play a moderator's role, right? Try to bridge between what is available out there. And also when you're back to Maxis internal, right? There's many business units. And sometimes, we tend to, while we all say the same thing, but we just like to say it differently. I think this team is also play a very important role, right? That to, mitigate and matchmaking, right? A lot of this together. And then on the other hand, I think the startup as well, right? I guess a lot of, just now the speakers are also giving a lot of good tips, right? Don't just drive by, valuation and numbers, right? I think ultimately, what problem are you solving? And, I guess come in with an open mind. I think by putting these two things together, hopefully magic will happen.
Understand.
And the main difference, like I say, between the corporate versus the VC, we are not just going in as an investment and ROI, right? A lot of this is really to solve our problem, and hopefully in the process, some of this that you can even scale, right? And you can turn it into a business by itself. I guess that's the biggest difference between the work with the corporate versus the VC.
VCs, right. How about Encik Fahmi?
For me, I look it from the angle of bridging the cultural gap, because as what Kinjit mentioned, there's a lot of legacies within the corporates. So first thing, it's all about human. In order for corporates to make the relationship successful, because relationship between the startups and the corporates is a journey. It's not just once off. We cannot treat startup as our solution provider like a normal vendor, but we should treat startups as our partners. So in order for that to succeed, we need to get the right people on board when dealing with the startups. Because if you have people with the same mindset, the old mindset of treating this like a customer-supplier relationship, this won't work. So those on the ground that should be able to help us out is someone with a clear mindset, understand what startups is all about, support the ambition and the mission. Because what we can see from our own experience, this is something I think the most challenging part of our journey. To go to the ground, to get the message across to our people, try to get them understand what we're dealing with. This is the way, the new way to go. That's one thing. Trying to address the cultural gap between our own people and the startups. Secondly, in order for that to happen, we need to have the right framework, the right process to engage with the startups.
Agreed.
We cannot simply use our current one.
Right.
One will deal with the vendors and whatnot. So it just won't work with all the risk management, assessment process.
It's going to be a headache.
Exactly. Yeah. So we need to build a fit for purpose process, which is with the right amount of governance, with the right amount of risk mitigation in place, and to allow a quick engagement between the business and the startups. Because with the startups, it's all about validating the solutions or technology that they bring onto the table before we actually can scale it in our own ecosystem. Because how I see Petronas should play its role, because although Petronas is big, but we cannot influence the startup ecosystem en masse. So what we are doing now is actually to create that mini ecosystem for startup to play with within Petronas, and hopefully other corporates will also be able to join us in that journey as well. I mean, yeah, we know that you should have like things like funding, the funneling of talent, and so on and so forth. We are trying to build that within our own ecosystem. When you have that right infrastructure, the right people, the right framework, the right process, hopefully it will work. We're still testing that. As I said, we are just like 4+ years old. But slowly we are learning, we are pivoting, we refine the process, and hopefully it will work. And to startups out there, I know there's always this saying that corporate is difficult to deal with the corporate with the culture differences and whatnot. Hopefully, together with people like Maxis, AirAsia, Petronas, and other corporates out there, if we really look deeper into our own process and allow startups to scale and grow within our own ecosystem, I seriously think that this can work.
That's going to be a really huge growth, right? So, okay, moving on to Dr. Ram. You are in a perspective of also a startup, right? So, what's your take on that?
The original question was about communication, right, Kairi?
The communication gap.
The communication gap.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'll just put it this way. It doesn't matter what industry you are in, whether you're corporate, whether you're a startup, doesn't make a difference. Communication skills are what separates us from the animals. As you can see, these gentlemen here are very articulate. That's what sets them apart from their peers. So if you cannot evoke a sense of understanding and emotion and passion in whatever it is that you are doing, you guys are passionate, But it's not about being gesticulating and showing all sorts of signs and shouting over the mic to your potential investors, but making them comprehend. Now, your pitch deck can only say so much. The rest is up to you to emote to them, to convey to them. So being able to articulate your idea on the spot, because they're going to ask you any number of questions. You're never going to be able to prepare for everything and ask people to prepare a speech for you or anything like that, right? And that's what you have to do. You have to be so confident and so immersed in whatever it is that you're doing that you are prepared. So it again boils down to the fact that you need to know everything and anything about your industry and what you're doing. Simple as that.
Right.
And you can answer all of these corporate heavyweights.
Thank you so much. So, okay, we're closing into the end of the session, right? So, thank you so much for the esteemed panelists. Can I have one last? No. Okay, all right. So thank you so much for the panelists, Mr. Loh, Encik Fahmi, and also Dr. Ram for sharing the experiences and insights of the corporate venturing into the startup ecosystem. I think all of us have learned a little bit, a thing or two in regards to how the corporates and also startups could actually work together. And let's continue to work on, overcome the challenges and startup is facing and create more vibrant, sustainable startup ecosystem. Thank you so much for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.